This is the Map Scout Challenge brought to you by OnX, where we examine the map, assess features like terrain, habitat, and access, then go out and rip it apart in person.
And right now we're gonna show you the results, no holds barred, so that next time you go to public land, you have the confidence to scout, hunt, and kill whatever you're after.
Seriously just happened.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Map Scout Challenge. We are in Eastern Illinois, and guess what? We're gonna go scout a world record county today. Yes, there is a new world record in the whitetail world, and we're gonna go scout some public land in that county. Let's go!
After that, you really, I mean, there's nothing there. Kansas.
Me too.
There's gonna be a gap in the building track.
So on November 2nd in 2018, a guy named Luke Brewster shot what would be the world record, the biggest buck ever harvested by a deer in North America. Nope.
A buck harvested by a deer.
By a deer.
That's what you just said.
What am I saying? 2018.
Come on, you can't be laughing, bro.
The biggest deer ever harvested by a man in the world. It's the world's record. It's 39 points. It's scored by a panel at 327 inches and 7/8, and it is just a freak show of a deer, and that's kind of what we're doing up here today. Casey is looking for a shed like that, right?
Yeah, we are in Edgar County, which is where that deer was shot. We're gonna go to a piece of public land and go try to find some world records, some world record sheds, some world record rubs, world record mushrooms even.
Oh my goodness.
And maybe, just maybe, show you how you can use OnX and mapping to be able to find a world record buck on public land.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that person has a pretty good setup right there. That is forever.
That's why they got all this warm season grass going nuts.
Ooh, I like pheasant work.
Me too, dude. It makes good habitat for deer. Is this like, this isn't rose, is it? Okay. Sunflowers and stuff.
Sunflowers and milkweed.
There's a rub.
Every tree.
Old rub. It's like every tree, man.
What is going on here?
I like the sound of it.
This is wild. I've never seen this before in my life.
There's some big tracks too.
I don't think they have an icon for this.
Oh my goodness.
It's a mineral lick. A natural one. All these trails hub into this thing. Like, I thought these were gonna lead to a bed or something, and they all hub into this mineral lick.
This is insane. Look at that, like,
I thought it was hogs.
why is it all like in the middle there all clumped up?
They're
It's weird.
hauling it
Guess they're
down.
just, yeah, pulling it down.
But look at all these tracks in there. I mean, every
Old
single one of them
signpost rub there.
Yeah, rubs on every tree.
This stuff is, I mean, it just rained, so this stuff is fresh. This is awesome. Most of the time, they're coming in, you can see where they stand right here, they sniff, and then if they go to digging, obviously they scoot up, but like they're sniffing right here, so you want to hang that camera to where the center is probably like right here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of reason probably to get, I mean, you can see where they stand there a little bit too, but like they're not coming in a whole lot right there.
Can we...
You kind of want to center it right here probably.
Can we take that information and look at it and apply that to a broader scale on the property?
Like
if
which
deer are
direction
coming
they're
in for
moving.
these three trails, so that means deer are spending a lot of time that way and less time that way, which makes sense because that's a little bit more towards the parking lot, but still, like, there's habitat everywhere. So
yeah,
maybe
I think you can also take the trail camera info.
Yeah.
And you very much use it like they're bedding back there, or they're moving to feed one way or another or whatever, I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely right now, I think we can assume that deer are spending a lot of time that way, in this way. And obviously there's a good trail there too. It's cool. It's what we wanted to find yesterday.
I don't even know what the marking says.
Scrape?
Scraping, yes.
There's actually, you can see the fence is down right here. I'm gonna mark that as a crossing essentially. Good trail coming out of where we just were with the willows and all the rubs and that big scrape thingy, that hole comes right up here into this field, which looks like they're trying to get to go fallow now. So just, we're gonna drop pins and we're gonna put it all together. It's gonna make more sense when you look at a map full of pins than when you just look at a map that's just an aerial.
I actually just went over there and checked the property line, private back here behind me, agriculture and beans. So there's a big landmark tree. It's a willow tree right on that edge of that line. There's some good rubs on it, but it's interesting to note this probably was corn last year and it's going to be beans this year. So that means that for, you know, summertime scouting, it's going to be pretty nice. You can actually come out here and, you know, maybe see some bucks from the road. I wonder if that's going to change, like a little bit of deer movement, not having corn there this year instead of having beans. So something to kind of note, but I'm going to put beans on here because that's good to know, like what year it's in what. So I'm just going to go on here, add a waypoint, go to food plot when I put it at, save that, and now we know what that field's in. So we just walked to the far northwest corner of this property. And this is a real cool thing I've noticed about being in Illinois is that deer use these fence rows that are grown up like this as transition zones, highways, whatever you want to call it. And right now, there is a giant trail coming into the public property. There's a giant trail coming down the fence line this direction and a giant trail that leads off this direction to public as well. A huge just hub transitional area. 3 trails meet right here, a great place to hang a trail camera. So I'm gonna mark that on the map as well and just show that, man, I mean, you could even hunt this in the rut, but like, especially for data, like it would be great to hang a camera right there in that tree and be able to see what deer are coming on and off of this property.
So one thing I noticed is this kind of open field right here. I was thinking, well, they're trying to turn it into fallow. It was fallow. It's been burned. And I think what they're doing is rotationally burning these fields. So they'll burn this one and let that one grow a couple of years, and then they'll burn that one. This one will have grown a couple of years, so that they're never too open at one time, I guess. But what I did notice is that you got a couple of things here. You've got, this is a goldenrod. You've got blackberry growing up in here. There's a, let's see, this is giant ragweed right here that's growing up. And then I've also noticed that there are a lot of common ragweed as well. Common ragweed is a pretty high source of protein. The other things that I mentioned, including the blackberry, get really tall really quick. And you can see these goldenrods are already, they're growing, you know, like that's the first thing you see when you look down into the grass. So I think that even after a burn year, this stuff is gonna get high enough to get use and be useful for deer, and also for us as hunters to consider habitat, bedding habitat and stuff like that in the fall, especially once it cools down and the sun's not beating on them out there. And also just stuff that they'll travel through, especially back here this far from parking. So a couple of things to think about in regards to all this as I'm walking across. I think now that we're on this back fence line, there's also a little planted beans, like a little plot right back here as well. This could actually, for as little as this timber strip looks, as small as it looks on the map, this could actually be a really great place to hunt. There's some big trees for stands and stuff like that. So we're gonna continue to kind of mess around in here and see if that's a place that we actually should spend some time hunting at some point, or if it would be of value, I guess, to you guys to hunt as well.
This is that,
Oh, baby.
I mean, right there, look at this giant trail coming.
Great, dude.
Like,
This is far, man. Like, it's far away. This is visually secluded, you know? It's low. Another thing I forgot to mention was that I noticed some partridge pea type stuff. Like it looks a little different than ours back home. I don't know if you noticed that. Like it's got a longer bean pod than what I had at home.
Well, I saw that stuff over yonder, and I was wondering if
different?
that was the same stuff. But I see stuff
Yeah, it's
growing
like
in.
on the small end of
Looks
stuff here. It
just
looks
like it.
just like the partridge pea. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see any right. There's a little bit right there. And so like, it's
But you shot a giant in Texas where that grows, so
Yeah.
I would imagine that in Illinois,
it's gonna get 5 to 6 foot tall. Like,
there's probably some gradient too of like maybe the partridge pea is bigger and the
Yeah.
deer are bigger
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
So world record partridge pea, world record deer.
that's right. We're finding world records today.
Then you realize, oh, something's up.
Oh, there's bigger deer out there.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I think these are beech trees, but I gotta look it up. My phone's dead. But
Hold on here, here.
so we were just sitting here talking about how there's a hole in the fence right here and how this place just sets up really good to hunt. And we were almost fixing to walk away, and I noticed some metal pegs sticking out of this tree that are at least 10 years old or older. I mean, these things are supposed to be that long, and you can't even put 2 toes on that deal right there. So at some point in time, some guy thought that this spot was good, and that shows you that this trail has been working this way for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that he was hunting the fence gap here, right? And if this thing is 10 or more years old, that fence gap's been there that long. So in other words, it's like a perennial scrape or a perennial rub, like signpost rub, where deer know where that thing is and they're going to go there. So I would assume that the trail is not just something that like, oh, we've been doing this since, a tree fell on it last year. Like this is something that literally has guided and directed deer movement on this property for at least a decade, probably.
And dudes.
And dudes.
But this is the only dude sign we've seen.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty exciting about a public place too, man. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
And it's a long time ago.
yeah. Goes to the past.
Oh,
Public
Public Gulf.
deer. I guess we'll find out when we follow the trail a little further.
So Eric, who's running the camera, actually just found a scrape back over there by KC, and KC literally just goes, dude, this is a travel corridor. Like this is awesome, man. This is right out of the gate, right here where we saw the fence crossing, and I came across this. So these scrapes are literally 25 yards apart. Like right here. This stuff's going on here, KC. I think. I mean, this you can see like there's fresh tracks right here. These things have been chewed up real good.
Ooh, I like a good licking break.
know
This
what I mean?
is where it's at.
It's a good scrape, man. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this.
Mark that.
Do we need to mark the other one or just know that it's right here, or what do you think?
I think you should mark them both because you don't want to set up weird for your wind for that
Oh, that's
stretch too. But I have something else to show y'all while you're marking that. Think about that big old stuff.
Oh my.
Look at
Where's
this.
it at?
That right there is a big acorn cap, and I think it's a red oak. And I'm assuming, I don't know,
We need
some
to find
tree
that
in
tree
here.
for sure.
That's a big dog though. Like that's a thing. Those deer come in here in late October, eat that acorn, and then make these scrapes. Like it's like a puzzle coming together almost. You start finding stuff like that.
I hate it. I can't watch it. Need some help?
Oh, I got it.
Good. Is this the scrape?
Yeah. Look at these marks right here, dude.
What's exciting about it is that this got work this year. We haven't seen a whole lot of fresh rubs, like that. Like that was work.
Oh man,
you
look at
could do,
this
set up-
Huh?
What you could do is set up in that tree. So I came over here and found these acorns. There's a bunch of caps over here on the ground underneath this tree. There's a rotten one. They're a pretty sizable red oak is what I'm thinking. This is a northern red oak, I think. Casey, I think. Looks a lot like the southerns that we have, but the leaves are broader. So I'm gonna mark that real quick. Right here, centered up. Drop a waypoint. We're gonna call this a northern red, how about? And then what sign should I use here? Food source maybe. All right, so that's marked. We probably need to move on. Your boy T's getting hungry.
That's a good one.
Trying to warm himself up on the log. Feels pretty warm. Big old bed right there. And if that doesn't mean buck bed, I don't know what does. There's another truck coming into it right over there, but it's definitely my size by itself. Probably was a buck. Good shade here all day long, you know, with these berries behind you.
All right, so we actually have a video that talks about this next thing, but it's feeder creek or secondary creek crossings. And there's one right here. One good way to locate them on the map is to make sure that your topo lines are showing. And where a creek gets squiggly, a lot of times that means it's flat. The creek just kind of goes where it wants. And because it's flat and wide in that area, a lot of times you'll see those crossings. And we've got one right here. I'll show you a couple of shots of the crossing, essentially what the creek looks like. And it's really not that far from the trailhead or the parking area up here. And over here, we'll also show you what that turns into a lot of times when you find a pretty good secondary creek crossing not far from the parking area. We've got a tree stand over here. So it's kind of the first human sign we've seen, which, you know, bodes well, I guess. But you definitely are gonna want to get away from the parking area. So let's take a look at this real quick. So all these trails kind of converge. It gets kind of weird down in here. There's a lot of different edges and habitats and everything right in here. But as you can see back here, they're going up right there. They're probably about 3,000 rubs in that whole figure right there, I imagine.
There's also another crossing right there, so they can go up in that way as well. It's not quite as big, but they're going up that little bit right there too. Well, it always is pretty awesome to be in a world record county. And we noticed some things about the world record county, okay? One of the big deals that I noticed in this property, that oaks and the agriculture crop rotation are going to be very important.
Yeah, and with all the oaks and the ag around, there are lots of deer, I think, in this area.
And you're going to need to put out a couple trail cameras to really kind of sift through all of those deer.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where this is a short season on this particular property, so I think you're going to need to really use those trail cameras to help you with that short early season.
And here's the deal. Illinois loves regulations. They regulate where you can park on the property, which is going to really have big implications for your deer season.
For sure,
right?
and with this property, it's a small property, so I think it could get crowded real quick. You're going to have to do some things to be creative and get away from the crowds.
So you talked about that it is a short early season. What's the deal with that?
As far as I can tell, and as far as all of us can tell, this is an October property. I believe it opens October 1 and ends at the end of October. I guess that's the 31st.
Usually the 31st, I think.
Okay, so that leaves you a short window of 1 month to get it done. It also happens to not be the best month to be hunting in a lot of times.
Better than July, but not better than November.
That's right. So anyway, I think with this short season, like you mentioned with the trail cameras, I think you're going to have to make sure that you are prepared for the pre-rut. And I think there are many things that play into this. I think that you talked about the oaks earlier. They could be a big part of this game because I don't know for sure when they're falling, but I would assume in October they are starting to fall. So that's something that I would think that you would do preparing for the October season. But my main point here, and I killed in Illinois last year in October 23rd. I think you're going to look for a late season, or a late October rather, cold front, and you're going to want to be hunting a scrape. And so I think we'll look at a spot here in a little bit that I think you could kill a deer on a scrape, being that it's a very heavy hub for deer travel. And I think that's what you're going to want in that early short season.
I think if you did wanted to go in there and target a little bit earlier in the month, especially maybe to try to get away from some of the pressure, because as you build towards November, the more and more guys have hunting on the brain, right? And our buddy Eric Gentry, who you've probably seen in this video or around a little bit, Eric says that up here in this country, he's from this area, that pretty much the deer move from beans to acorns. And that's just pretty much as soon as those soybeans start turning brown or yellow, they move to the timber and go find acorns to eat. And one of the things that we found on this property is that there's actually a ton more oaks than what we originally thought. We were finding a few along. I think we were assuming they were northern reds, but there were these other trees that just had long single-lobed leaves, and we're like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And we couldn't line it all up, but later, doing some research on the internet, we figured out that those are shingle oaks, which I don't think are preferential for a deer. I think they'd rather eat something else if I've researched right. I don't know personally, but a shingle oak over a piece of dirt, they're probably going to choose the shingle oak.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it's still a really good spot to be, and especially that one spot that we found where like you had all different types of oak trees.
Well, that's the thing. I think when you look at the shingle oaks, there's so many of them in some of these places, like that particular spot, that it becomes the red oak or whatever that you find, the Shumard type of oak, like that becomes, or the northern red, whatever it was, becomes like the thing. You know what I mean? It's like that. Or if you find a big white oak or something like that, that just happens to be a more tasty acorn, then that's how you actually, you've got a lot of food in there, but then you got that one tree that's the one you need to be hunting at if you're a bow hunter. So with that, I think you do have lots of deer in this area. This is Illinois. I mean, it's big deer country. There's lots of deer. There's lots of agricultural production, and there's lots of oaks on this property, like KC said, with the shingle oaks. So I think one thing that is exciting is that you have the opportunity to shoot does, or even just, you'll have probably several of those 3-year-old class bucks that use this property a lot. And if you're the guy that likes to shoot a 3-year-old 120 or something like that with your bow, this is a great property probably to do that on, because there's going to be several of those. Now, I think year to year, it's going to depend on just the pressure that surrounds this property, whether you're going to have a real, what people consider trophy class, maybe, like 150 plus type deer. I don't know, what that looks like. And I think that's one thing. If you're the guy that wants to hunt those type of deer, then, and that's what you're worried about, you're probably going to want those trail cameras to be running for you.
Yeah, and I think that, we kind of framed this video as like the world record scouting. And of course, here's the deal. The fact that a world record was killed in this county is cool. Does that mean the deer are bigger in this county than the county over? Probably not.
Yep.
Is there a chance that a world record walks across this public piece sometime in the future? Yes, there's always a chance, right? But I do think that antler size, trophy quality is going to be relative, and I think that it does mean something for you to know that a world record was grown in the same county, at least. That means that the food and resources are around that deer need to be able to grow to that caliber. So I think that you can go in there and maybe not have aspirations of shooting a 200. If one walks by, I wouldn't pass it, but there is a good chance to go in there and see good deer. And that makes me really excited.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, this property has almost everything that you'd want. Like it's got some lowland stuff that includes like willows and big like CRP switchgrasses and stuff like that. Lots of briars. It's got creeks, so it's got water. And it looks like the water is kind of a year-round thing. Like it's there a lot. It's a deep creek and it's clear. It's probably spring-fed. There's also some kind of upland stuff that grows good native grasses. You've got crops. You've got heavy timber. You've got edge timber. You got edge along that creek system. I mean, you just got like everything you need there. So this is a small property that could get crowded really quickly. And also, if you're not really wanting to walk too far, then coming in from the same parking lot that everybody else does, you're probably going to struggle to get away from people. I guess it just depends on, this is one of those things where you could scout, if you lived close by or whatever, you could scout it, for people a lot of times and see where they're at. The only stand that I can remember us finding, though, was very close to the parking lot. down in that
Yes,
creek
it
bottom.
was. Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully that's a good sign. And I think that there's enough edge on this property that there are lots of spots to hunt for a property that's only like 200 acres or whatever. So that's kind of a, I guess, encouraging thing that I noticed about it.
Yeah, and one of the other things that you have to keep in mind is that Illinois, they like their regulations. We don't really know why they do stuff, right? But just like with the only October, you can only park in one place on this whole property to enter. Apparently, they're going to write you a ticket if you park on the side of the road anywhere around the WMA. I don't know. It's a hindrance, but if you're a guy who doesn't mind adding a little extra effort, you bring a bicycle, and you could definitely end up in some places that most people wouldn't be able to at least access on the best winds, right? So say on this property, for instance, the parking lot is on the south side, kind of the southwestern corner or whatever. So if you have a south wind of about near any type, you're going to be winding deer as you go in. And not that you wouldn't still drive a bike upwind of them, but a guy on a bike on the road is much different than a guy walking in through the woods. When, you know, deer can smell if you are 50 yards away versus 300 yards away. Not technically that way, but you get what I'm saying. You know, it's much less of an intrusion to go that way.
For sure. So let's look at some of these points that we made and talk about where we might set up on this property.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple places picked out on this map here that we think would be really good places to hunt. Right here. I didn't mark it, but I know exactly where it is, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it right now, okay? We found a fence crossing in the video. You probably saw us talking about it quite a bit. I'm going to mark it as purple to show that it looks like a good hunting spot. So we kind of have a system, right? We mark things white that we haven't been to that we think it's going to be good. White hot is what you came up with that thought. Purple for me always means like, oh yeah, check this out. So we've been here. I'm going to mark it purple. I'm going to save that. Right here where this kind of heads out, there's kind of a little bit of a draw, of course, down here to this creek, and then there's another draw, another creek that leads up to the ag field up here at the top. Or I think this might have been converted to CRP recently or burned or something. I don't know. But either way, there are two really hammer fence crossings right here with oak trees right below it. Okay, and I think that you could possibly hunt that in the morning, dare I say, in early season, assuming that deer have been out and about, out in the ag and stuff, and maybe they made it in here to this finger or in here, and then they're going to make it to these oaks, you know, mid-morning before they go to bed. Just a thought. I don't know for sure. I would definitely want to hang a camera there. We've got these Moultrie Delta cell cams that I would definitely like to put there just to see what that movement's like. Because we talked about that in person, right? That we thought that those deer could be going either direction. And it might depend on the crop rotation, which year, on which direction they're headed morning and evening, right?
I like the spot a lot, man. I mean, this is, we looked at some trees. There's several killing trees in there, man. Just big old oak trees that you can get hidden in really well. And blowing your wind back up, especially blowing an east wind back up to the west, could be a good spot to kill deer that are coming down those north and south trails too. Which, I mean, if you're hunting it in the morning, I mean, you can have a north wind as well and probably do pretty well.
And there's also the idea of just hunting this thing on Halloween Day and shooting a giant who's already cruising.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like,
sure.
You don't get to hunt November, but deer do November-y things at the end of October. We saw that in
100%.
Iowa a couple years ago.
Yes.
You know, they were chasing hardcore. What was that, October 26th or something like that?
Yeah, it was. Well, it was the last few days of October.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because we left out on like Halloween or the day before or something like that. So yeah, it was nuts. I like that spot a lot, and that would probably be a spot that might be the spot that I would hunt if I was on this property. But another spot that I do like, and Casey mentioned all this ag right here. You see, this is almost like food plot-esque right here up on the north side. I don't know if that actually is a production deal or if that's like, you know, for food plotting, but this is more production type. And I believe y'all said this was beans. I didn't see that, right? Down that.
Let's see. I marked it. Let's see what I said it was. There we go.
There we go.
Beans 2021. Okay,
right.
And the reason I marked it 2021 is because we're assuming every other year that's going to be corn or beans. So in 2022, it would be corn. But as for this year, you're going to be looking at green beans on October 1st, most likely.
Green beans, yeah. So, like, they could be on oaks, which that spot that KC, you know, is talking about has a bunch of oaks, and that's be the place to be if these beans are not being fed on very much. But if this is a food plot here on the north side of this property, I saw a lot of really cool stuff in this very corner right here. And so if you look at it, there actually is some brush right here, and I'll zoom in a second. There's some brush here. There's some brush along this fence line. This is very CRP looking, at least on the map. I can't remember what it was. There's this creek system right here that leads up here. Obviously this big patch of timber. There's a back corner right here. It's very secluded. And then all this down here had been burned but was coming back into native grass. And I think it's going to be super tall because the stuff, I think they're rotationally burning this property. So all this stuff up here in the front near this little slough right here is tall stuff. I mean, it's deer habitat. And so I think they're burning this, keeping this tall, and then burning this and keeping this tall. So anyway, with that said, there was a ton of rubs right in here. I think we might even found a scrape right in here. And this little spot right here has got some big trees that you can hang in. And I think one thing you could do is if this grows back into bedding habitat and this stuff becomes preferential food for destination food type food, you could walk this west fence line on, you know, a north or a northeast if you had it, or an east wind, and you could hunt here on an evening and expect deer that come out of this grass and filter up over here into this corner. And you just got, it's a hub, you know, it's a place that hub scrapes should be made, and definitely I think will be made, in a great spot to kill a deer on a cold front, especially if you can get a north to northeast out of these trees in late October.
One of the things I remember about that place too is that it dips a little bit right here at the head of this creek. So there was a good creek or a good fence crossing like right there.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
You can assume that deer.
That might be a trail. Can you see a trail there? It almost looks like a
it
little
almost
trail,
looks like it right
there.
there, and then coming into the property there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
That's
has
good.
something to do with that spot. So, you know, I think that that's a great spot, especially if you were looking at setting up on that more eastern side of that little shelter belt or timber pocket or whatever you want to call it. So my last point is just kind of directly east of there on the fence line still. You didn't walk over here. We kind of split right here. I found a scrape right there that was pretty good, but there's going to be scrapes all up and down this timber line on the open pasture here. But I was walking right here. You can't really tell, but you can kind of see with the elevation lines, but it drops off quite a bit right here. And this is kind of like a big hill right here, and there are trails feeding off of this hill all over. And I think that on a northwestern type front day, like one of those late October front type days, you might be able to have deer who have been bedded up on this big hill right here that filter down into here looking to come out into this pasture, check these scrapes that are all along the edges, that sort of thing. So I think that probably my last hunting spot would probably be somewhere right in here. I can't really tell you where. I would want to go in there and kind of scout my way in, not just blowing it all up. It'd be a really great opportunity to take your bicycle from this parking spot that is way over here, goodness gracious, or have a buddy, but you have to park right here. Okay, so if you have to park there, take your bike or have a buddy drop you off over here, and then you could slip. I think you jumped a doe right here, so
Yes,
you wouldn't
I was
want to
gonna
go
say
through
that.
there.
So like, and what I found is I was on a trail when I came into that opening. Show them that opening right there. Kind of circle that a little bit. Yeah.
This thing right here?
So yeah, I came into that from the north, and there was a trail coming.
Is that it right there?
I think that's it. And then, but I actually ended up cutting down the edge right there and walking down the east side of that little opening.
I think you could walk. So there's a low water crossing in the creek. Y'all probably saw that in video right there. I think you could walk right up this and just right in there like that, because there's just not a lot of deer habitat right along this creek. There might be something, but there's also a levee right along the creek. So even if there is something between you and the creek, it might be on the other side of the levee. You don't have to worry about bumping too much if you go through this CRP right here. It didn't seem, or along the edge of it. So just slip right up in there, hop in a tree on an October cold front, and shoot
northwest
a big buck.
wind, man.
Yeah,
on a cold front,
It's
right
mad
there.
bone. Because you know there's going to be deer over here on this private too. You know, and I think that's the idea of the cold front thing, is that bucks are like, okay, I'm going to go see what's over there because I've been waiting on this day. So something we probably need to talk about on the map too. Okay. Is this weird deal right here. We're kind of past our hunting spots. I don't think I would hunt here at least anytime in October, but it's a place for a camera whenever it loads. So this is a camera spot, okay? This here creek, as you can see, leads out of the big timber place right here. A little bit further to the east, there's that spot in those oaks we found. This was that weird mud lick scrape thingy. It was right out in this big middle of a thicket of willow looking stuff. I don't know what it was. All I can assume is a mineral lick, you know? But you talk about a place to hang a camera. We're going to send Eric in there with one of those cellular mole trees, hang that thing on there and see every deer on this property, because like this is the highest concentration of deer activity I probably have seen.
There's a rub on like every tree.
Every tree. And there were tracks everywhere. It was muddy because there were so many deer in there, right? So they really, really liked whatever was going on right there. And that's a place that I think if you have to hang a camera anywhere, at least to understand what kind of deer are on the property, that's the place to do it. Now, if you're trying to hang a camera somewhere to help you kill a deer, definitely more in this fence gap right here or something like that, right? But if you're trying to find a big buck and maybe you have an opportunity to hunt different WMAs and stuff, that's one to definitely think about right there. So we did another Map Scout Challenge last year in Illinois. You should go check that out. It's much different country, you know, more of that, it's National Forest, right? Shawnee National Forest, which is really cool. So go check that out if you haven't yet. And also on this trip, we went and did a Map Scout Challenge in Illinois.
Indiana.
In Indiana, which I'm sure that cut isn't going to make it. You're probably just going to put the point in there where we laugh at each other. But go check that out if you haven't as well, because we saw some interesting stuff there too. It's definitely within the same area. I think that one of the things you can do on these type of properties is have 5 or 6 of these little 200-acre places, find the biggest buck, and go kill him.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that for sure, man. I think that there are other awesome properties in Illinois and all throughout the Midwest. So I would suggest finding your own spot. We have shown you everything here. You'll feel much more accomplished if you go find your own spot, but this is a very cool little place to be hunting also. So I'm not going to hate you if you do go there at all. If you do, send us a message or something like that. Let us know what you saw and how you felt about the property and everything. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.